And welcome everyone to Module 3 of FestiSkills Hunters training, Crisis Management and Problem Solving. My name is Peedu Põld. I'm from Viljandi, Estonia, and it's a really great pleasure to see you all here. Today we focus on event organizers. So event organizers can prepare for and respond to unexpected situations calmly and effectively. Today's session is not about becoming an expert in risk or crisis management, because no one can learn that in just 2 hours, believe me. It takes much more time. But what we can do today is to understand the nature of crisis, what it really is and how it starts, and how to think clearly when it happens. My today goal is to give you core principles of event safety, so that after this session you can continue to apply and develop them independently. You don't have to remember every step of every model or graphs. Just take away a mindset that safety is not control over people. It's care, it's anticipation, and it's clear communication. And today's learning format. This module follows the same structure as most of FestiSkills Hunters trainings. The full format includes a 2.5-hour session like today. Then we have from 2 to 4 hour homework task. And finally, we have 1 hour feedback meeting next week. So this session today will be a mix of short lectures, real life examples, and discussion. And at the end, I'll explain short homework assignment where you will apply these ideas to your own project. At the end of this module, you will have a practical understanding how crisis situations develop and how to handle them. You'll be able to recognize different kinds of crises, like accidents, technical failures, and safety threats, and understand how to prevent or manage them. You will also learn how to communicate under pressure and work as a team during stressful moments. The final goal is to help you feel more confident and ready to create events that are not only creative and welcoming, but also safe, resilient, and well managed. Before we begin, this is a full plan of our lecture today. Sessions last 2.5 hours, as I said, and includes both theory and practice. You will have time for questions and a short break, and we'll finish a practical homework task that connects this topic to your own event project. So the first minutes are for introductions and understanding what we mean by crisis. Then we move through examples of real event crises and how to prepare for them. And after a short break, we will discuss practical steps, how to act in a crisis and solve problem as a team. And finally, at the end, I've added time for key lessons and for your chat questions. So please write the questions in the chat. So during the session, so we'll go through them in the end of our lecture. So we go absolutely all of them. And finally, as I said, I will explain your homework, which connects today's idea with our own event project. And as I said, my name is Peedu Põld, and I work as the head of operation at Estonian Traditional Music Center in Viljandi, and also as the head of festival operation at the Viljandi Folk Music Festival. The festival has a long tradition, more than 30 years, and I've been here, let's say, more than half of that time. So it means that for more than 15 years, I've been responsible for planning, setup, management of large buildings, including infrastructure, permits, safety, coordination, and crisis response. This means to me working daily with local authorities, rescue services, and hundreds of staff of volunteers to make sure that everything runs safely and smoothly. Beside my operational work, I also teach event safety and risk management at the University of Tartu Viljandi Culture Academy, where I train future festival organizers. And my approach combines real-world experience from festival production with academic structure of risk analysis and safety planning. In this module, I want to share what I've learned from both theory and practice. My goal is to help you understand that good crisis management isn't about panic or control. It's about calm preparation, teamwork, and learning from every challenge. And before we dive into today's content, I want to explain the main focus of this session. When we talk about crisis management and problem solving, we are not talking about the disasters only. We are also talking about how to think clearly when something really goes wrong. Every event, even the most successful one, includes small challenges and sometimes bigger surprises. So the question is not if problems will happen, but when and how we respond. This is 100% sure. I can tell you, problems will happen. And this session, we go step by step. What kinds of crises can occur and events, and how we can prepare and prevent them. And what do we do when the crisis starts? How to stay calm and lead your team. And finally, how to learn from these experiences to improve your next event. The main goal is to leave this session with practical tools and calm mindset to help you make good decisions even under stress. So, what do we actually mean by crisis? Let us stop for a moment and think, what do we actually mean by crisis in the context of event? When you hear the word crisis, what comes to your mind first? Take a second and everyone just think. Is it a natural disaster or political conflict or something happening inside an event? What is it? Just think, crisis. And here, today lecture, I will talk about crisis in about practical on-site situations, not global problems, not the political crisis, not the environmental crisis, but things what suddenly can affect your visitors, staff, and programs of your events. As we work as organizers, we talk about practical on-site situations. For example, a stage collapses because of a wind, or a guest faints in the crowd, or sound system stops working, or intoxicated visitor causes a disturbance, and so on and so on. None of these are world-ending disasters, actually, but they will become critical moments where we must think fast, act calm, and keep people safe. Safety first. So in this lecture, when we say crisis, we mean anything that stops normal operations and requires your immediate action. It's about unpredictability, something that tests you preparation and teamwork. So when we say crisis, we don't mean political and global emergencies. We mean practical crises inside event organization. There are kinds of unexpected things that can happen during preparation and even itself. These situations can require fast thinking, clear communication, and teamwork. So every event, even small one, can face moments like this. A power cut, sudden storm, health emergencies, or security problem, and so on and so on. So they all test how we are prepared. We as these organizers are meant to be here. So, have you ever experienced something like this, an event you organized or attended? I believe you all have. So just reflect together. I prefer not now in with your voice or speech. Just think about these three questions I've put here for reflection. So later we can discuss them. But in the end, you are please feel free to share them in the chat or email. You can send me, and we'll start these examples, to collect these examples, to connect them later to our risk planning and prevention. You will see in my later slides that this experience, what you had, gives you the base for the future planning plans and future risk management. So in this context of event management, crises usually fall into 6 main categories. As you see here, accidents and injuries. These are most common type, often caused by small mistakes, uneven ground, slippery surface, heavy structures, or crowd pressure. I believe you have more examples for the first points, accidents and injuries. They are the most common type of crisis. Next one, weather-related crisis. Weather-related crises, of course, are for outdoors events, but they also have influence to indoor events also. If you lose the power because of the thunderstorm, then it also your indoor event can stop also immediately. You have to be prepared for that also. So, as I said, sudden storms, heat waves can threaten both safety and comfort. Weather-related crisis. That was the second one. Third one, which is affected for this second one, is technical and infrastructure failures, power cuts, broken sound system or lighting system, stage collapses. This stop the program and can create panic. Even the visitors can be injured, and so on, so on. So it has to be really carefully preserved before. And fourth one is crowd and behavior incidents. So it means that crowd surges, blocked exits, fights, intoxicated or aggressive behavior. I believe in Estonia here, according to my experience, this crisis has not been very common, because in Estonia our events are not that big crowd, having that big crowd on attending the events. But you must keep it in mind that it can happen. These 6 type of crises, they are not in order of importance. Just one leads to another, and it's good order to remember them. And next, 5th one, security and safety threats. Thefts, vandalism, lost persons, or even terrorist threats in large public gatherings. So also, happily, we don't have such experience as terrorists in our events, but if we didn't have, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. My point is, if you keep in mind that if I don't have such experience, it doesn't mean that I won't have that experience in future. So this crisis you have to keep in mind. And we come back to it later in risk management part. So we will counting risks later according to this crisis. And last one, accessibility and communication failures. It means that the information is not enough visible, and there is no announcements with audio. There are blocked access or disabled or elderly visitors. So every visitor is important in our event. So it doesn't have to be younger or elder or disabled person. We have to keep on our minds that every visitor is important, and every visitor, also a crew member health is the most important for us. My main goal is that we can change or replace any technical part or anything material, but we cannot replace or give back the health if something happens to a person during our events. So my main goal during my festivals or my events is everyone has to go home by himself. Then my event has been finished for me with a success. So each of these 6 crises requires the same foundation: anticipation, communication, and calm leadership. I reply in anticipation, communication, and calm leadership. Safety planning. This is not about reacting. It's something really more. It's about thinking ahead. There are 5 core ideas here. Anticipation. That means that we are able to imagine what could go wrong. Imagine, even if it hasn't happened before, as I told you. If it hasn't happened before, it doesn't mean it won't happen in your event or in your next event. So preparedness, to have clear plan, to have a trained team, people in your team, and resources before the event starts. These resources can be the batteries of your phone, or can be extra drinking water, or blankets, or space or rooms for gathering people together, whatever it means. These resources have to be planned before, and this planning can come from preparedness. And it's also related with the next point. It's file saves. You have to have backup systems. You have to have backup plan. You have to have, for example, extra power sources, spare cables, or alternative routes. Even you have to have backup team member. Why? In big events, normally there are a leader, and there's also assistant of the leader, who is also has in all the information the leader has, and she or he has all the access to all the things she or he needs to have. It's because anything can happen to leader. This assistant can take over and continue or find the solution after. So we have to have backup even for our team member. If the illness come or something else can happen, so this file saves is important also for people. Next one, the precautionary principle. It's something, if something is not proven to be safe, it must threat that it's unsafe until it is. If it means, in other words, that if you cannot prove it's safe, you must take it as it is unsafe until you can prove it's safe. And anything is not safe 100% ever. It's true, it's sad, but it is like this. And the last one, core idea, is communication and teamwork. This safety planning, it works only when we have every member in the team has his own role, and the team knows exactly how to act, and every member of the team has responsibility. Everyone feels responsibility, and this is not it's not last year, but it's not least communication and teamwork. So this little reflection, I just ask you to think about these things and maybe write down in the chat, or write me to the chat about your feelings about these questions, about these short questions, and about your experience, what you have. These 5 principles we had in previous. We often think that safety is something technical. It means that you need to have fire extinguishers, you need to have fences, you need to have signs, you need to have whatever. But most of the safety actually starts with our mindset. It's about to be able to see one step ahead. So anticipation. What are examples of risks that you have learned predict from some experience? For example, things that you went wrong once, but never again because you have changed your planning. And preparedness. How do you make you're sure that team is ready before the event starts? Do you hold safety briefings? Do you test equipment? Are you having enough time to talk each other's? And file saves. What kind of backups plans do you usually prepare? For example, extra power, rain protection, second sound system, or alternative routes. Of course, there's always not possible to have extra power generator or have a second sound system on the stage, but still you need to think about what are the backups on that cases, what will happen. Each of these small actions prevents actually big problems. When teams think in advance and talk about what if, they build true risk awareness. They don't have fear if they think what if, but they have readiness. And readiness is everything, as someone said. Now, these principles just told, anticipation, preparedness, fail-safes, and communications, they are simple. They are really simple things, but they save lives. So when you apply them, small risks stay small, and crises can often be avoided in trial. So think ahead and act together. And now I like to go further with some practical tasks. So I come back to the risk mapping and assessment. This risk mapping assessment is one of the most practical tools of event planning. This helps you move from intuition to structure. This risk assessment is a structured way to turning assumption into data. So this process can be summarized into 4 steps. First step, identify what could go wrong. Think across the categories: weather, technical, crowd, health, security, accessibility. This, you can make a list, you can make really long list of all possible things that might go wrong. This identifying risk is the base of risk mapping and assessment. So if this is the base, you can move to next step. And this base identifying risks, it doesn't have to be your own experience. You can collect the experience from the other events or from the other crew members. You can collect people together and make this identifying as brainstorming. You can make it as extra meeting of your team. The base is more risks you can identify, more success you have to work on these risks or eliminate these risks. So you have to think across all the categories you have in your event. I reply weather, technical, crowd, health, security, accessibility, and so on and so on. Assess, it means you can estimate how likely each risk is to happen or how serious impact would be. Let's take it like scale can be really simple, but I show you in the next list that if I mean impact in this this slide, you can see 5 categories of impact. It's insignificant, minor, moderate, major, and catastrophic. Every risk you have put in the base list, you should have also the impact of the risk. This is first thing you need to assess, estimate how likely the risk can happen and how serious impact would be. So these categories or levels of the impact and probability can be even bigger. It can be 10 but it makes it decisions really complicated. So try to keep it simple and try to keep it as simple as possible. I would say these five levels is for first time it would be quite complicated. I prefer to start with 3, but this sample I show you this we have 5. So next one is as I said you this probability. Probability, as we have here, is also 5 levels. Very unlikely, some chance, likely, and very likely. So if you have these impact and probability scale done, then you just have to prioritize. You must focus on the first risk, and this focusing or prioritizing can happen only according by this scale. If you take that, evaluate this risk catastrophic and it can happen very likely, then in that case you should act. As you see, you take very likely in one axis and catastrophic another axis, you should act. And if you think, of course, it needs to be acted because catastrophic and very likely happening risk, you should act. This red zone, as you see, they all have the task acting. This like a visually shows you that the probability and impact, each risk we identify, we put it in a scale, and in a green zone we have low impact, low probability. Yellow zone we mean medium level risk, and red zone is high probability and high impact. And this red zone we have to act immediately. This goal of filling this boxes, this is not just for filling the boxes. This helps you to see your risks clearly and focus your time and budget where it truly counts. So when you have event planning, it also helps you communicate and prioritize to your team that these risks are big ones. Let's plan them for the first. And remember, this risk assessment, it's not bureaucracy, it's your decision support. It helps you to decide which risks are we dealing with, or which risks we are not dealing with. We leave them behind, and these are not important for us. But it doesn't mean you don't need to identify them. This identifying is a base, as I said, and it doesn't mean that they are not important. In one day, these risks can be important, and then you will be already have them in the list. Let's say 7 or 8 years ago, when I had my experience in folk music festival safety planning, we had also identifying the risk of viruses or medical medical things. We couldn't imagine that the coronavirus will come in one day and will affect our yearly event really hard. It was a small risk, but it was still worth in the list, because the list includes also risks we have nowadays, but it also had risks which were important in that time, but risks which wasn't important in that time became important later. I can tell you this list of the risks was actually, I can tell you seriously, it was 30 separate rules, and that we counted 30 risks of the festival. Of course, we have 4 days festival, and we have almost 25,000 attendees, so that is something to identify. But believe me, the viruses and problem with epidemic problems, they wasn't even in first of 20s. It was in the after 20 risks it became, but it became important after we had coronavirus became. And the third part, prioritize. Which risks need action first? As I told you, the prioritizing it's about focusing. It's focusing risks which are both likely and severe. When you have limited resources, you should always go to high impact and high probability areas. And I show you these likely and very likely risks, and major and catastrophic risks. They need our attention, and they need our resources. And the last one, plan control measures. Decide what can reduce or eliminate the risk. Prevention, mitigation, substitution, and communication. I tell you, this is not possible that you eliminate the risk absolutely 100%. It's never possible. But you can reduce, or you can control the risk, and this is our goal: to deal with risk, identify, assess, prioritize, and have a plan. What we can do to prevent the risks or reduce the risk. So this visualizes as a risk matrix. His name is risk matrix. It's a grid. It goes probability. It shows you a probability in one axis and impact another. So it helps organizers, as we are, to see the risks rather than just in a list. When you have in 20 risks in the list, you can't find out which is the first or which is the second or what. This matrix can really help you out. And I'm telling you, this little homework I give you later, is also including that risk mapping and assessment part. So in my mind and in my experience, this risk mapping and assessment is a thing which every event organizer should think about and put attention on. So, as I said, these high-risk areas, red zone, must have concrete actions, and these they need decision, and they need absolutely all your attention. I would like to give you an example now of outdoor summer concert about this risk matrix. So we have one simple example, outdoor summer concert. We take here 3 possible risks and see if they fit in the matrix. So, power outage during a headline concert. So we lose the power. And what will happen then? Probability. I would say if you take it 1 to 5, it's more or less, in my opinion, it's unlikely it will happen. Now let's say 2. I cannot organize event or have an event where the probability of a power outage is catastrophically probable. It's very likely happens. Then I'm done something wrong when my event has probability that I lose power. So this is something I need to think about in the first place. So probability 2, it means unlikely. Impact. So impact, in my opinion, if you lose power, it's catastrophic. So even it doesn't happen, or the consequences are serious, the show stops, the safety lights will fail, and the crowd maybe panic. So this impact of the power outage is really catastrophic. So I would say I put this into acting part. As a share, I'm sorry, I left one word in Estonian, but later I will change that. Yes, we'll say impact is catastrophic and it happens unlikely. We have to act. So let's take the red zone risks. It needs to be acted. We have to have backup generator, tested emergency lighting, and clear chain and command. So actually, this tested emergency lighting is thing we should have anyway in our events, I believe. But the backup generator normally it costs a lot. It needs extra money. Usually we don't have backup generator. So we treat all high impact risks as red, no matter how rare they are. If we have high impact in our risk, we have put it impact really high, we have to calculate them. We have to treat all high impact risks as red. And it doesn't matter if they are how rare they are important, they are filled with a red. Let's take a second example. Volunteer team miscommunication. Yes, it can happen. And it's also outdoor summer concert, and probability that someone gets wrong information or someone is missing something, probability is quite high. Let's say it would be 3. In some chance it can happen. Impact, I would say it's not catastrophical, but impact can be 3. It's moderate. We can I believe you agree with me. It can happen quite often, and the result is that it slows down your response and causes confusion during event, or it causes confusion even if we have to evacuate or if we have to take action. So if we don't have communicated team, if there is miscommunication, there will be a mess, absolutely. And if you see here probability 3 and impact 3, I would go back here, impact moderate and some chance probability. It means yellow in the middle of the graphs. Assess. So this means you don't need to act. You need to assess this risk. Take some steps to avoid this miscommunication or be ready for that miscommunication. No, be ready. You can say you cannot be ready, but you have to avoid it by taking team together, to having team meetings, to have good documentation, to have clear commands for every situation you would have during this event. Yes, I'm missing here the third example, but this one you will have later by yourself. So our lecture is about crisis. I think you already asked in your mind, what is risk about this crisis? What is the risk about when we talk about crisis? And this is a really clear explanation for that. Risk is what really could go wrong. Risk is what could wrong. What could, the main word is what could, and crisis when this actually goes wrong. Risk and crisis, they are not the same. When you have seen how the assess risks using the matrix, risk is only a potential problem. It's not the problem itself. And crisis is when the problem actually happens and it disrupts the event. So this slide marks the shift from it marks a shift from risks to crisis. So risk is potential situation, but crisis is when the risks becomes real. Preparation shortens the crisis. So that means if you are prepared for that crisis, when you have done the risk management, you have done risk assessment, and you have everything done with risk part. So this preparation shortens the crisis period. And another slide for the risk to crisis, that the real meaning of preparation is it doesn't stop things from happening, but it helps us to turn chaos into control. This is good sentence to remember. Preparation turns chaos into control. So these steps are when you have risk, we have prevention, we have crisis, we respond it and recover. Though this is like a little road, or how we say it goes one by one. If you think about later, you can imagine it, how clear and how exact it is to give it from risk to crisis and so on. And now we can come to part when we talk about acting in a crisis. When a crisis happens, we move, we have our plans, and then we move from our planning to real action. Hopefully we have plan for action. So when the crisis happens, we start our crisis planning, and we have our action plan. And actually these 5 steps of acting in crisis are the main steps we should keep in mind or write down or having in our documents or in big documents on the first place. So first of acting in crisis, to recognize. If you recognize what's happening, if you recognize the crisis has started, you first admit that something is wrong. Something is not like you have planned, or something is likely what has been different from your plan, or you have to quickly identify what is wrong, what is going on. I say it in big crisis, it would save lives. It saves lives and it saves time. We have for example, we have like imagine that we have a fire in some place in our house. We absolutely understand. If we have fire alarm, we know it how it sounds. We know something is wrong when fire alarm starts. We don't put it away, say it's a false alarm. We don't act it, because then we lose time if it's really is a real fire in our building or in our house. So quick identification saves time and lives. So we have to recognize every mark. It could show us that a crisis or things have started or happening. And second one, as I told, to stay calm and take a leadership is the next point. It's really easy to say stay calm in crisis, or stay calm when you have fire alarm in your ears, especially at midnight. It's easy to say, but you must understand this is the point when you really have to stay calm. Your emotion actually spread fast. Stay calm is the key where you have to act nextly, because staying calm is a key to take the next point, as we say, communication. This communication cannot be happen in short and factual messages when you can't stay calm. Your emotional I'll say situation gives the next steps to the crisis acting. You are not able to communicate shortly, to say who you are, what's happening, where you are. This staying calm is not easy, but it's important. I believe you all know it. So, and we're getting to communication. It has to be short. It has to be a factual message. It has to be direct. It has to be strict, and it has to be also clear. And fourth one, communicate with your team, support your team. Don't act alone. If you have an event, I believe you have a team, even if you have a team, 1 or 2 or 3 people, you don't act alone. You have your team, you can share responsibility, and you can trust your people. Give them responsibility, share everything you need, and even if you are not ready to act calm and stay calm, you know it. Actually, people know when they cannot stay calm. They give this main communication to people who can do it. So this one is not shame. You cannot stay calm. You recognize it. You have experience. This is not your strength, but you have someone in your team. You just give all the responsibility to him or her. And the fifth one, record and report. After all is over, hopefully everything has has been over quickly, and everything as good end, as good as it can be. It's important to document what happened. This is to learn later. This is how we learn later. Document, make team meetings, have some sharing experience. This is all about to learn from the experience and for better next event to organize. And now I ask you to think. I spoke a lot about staying calm, but which step would be hardest for you to under pressure? These 5 steps. Let's say this record and report, it cannot be happen under pressure, but these 4 steps, if you are under pressure, I believe you all will answer me that staying calm and take a leadership in this can be the hardest for you to take the step. And now we go from the acting in a crisis to third point, communication. In a crisis, communication is actually your lifeline. Even if silence can be communication. If you don't feel the information space, the rumors will start. The silence is also communication. It's kind of bad communication. So your messages when you communicate have to be clear, consistent, and connected. So clear, it means no emotion, no long explanation, just short facts. If something happens, you just say the facts. You don't say, how do you feel? How do you experience? What are your plans for next 3 minutes? Communication has to be clear to give the information those people or our visitors so they can hear clearly and they can act clearly. Next, the communication is clear. It also has to be consistent. So everyone in the team has to have the same information, and everyone in your team has to know the act of real situation. They have to know the plan for next steps, and they have to say the same thing. The same message from your team has to go to the others. We have to agree that if you give the same message, then you would be listened. If everyone has his own idea or everyone has his own emotions or plans or experience, then it would be disaster. And the third one, I say communication under pressure is to be connected. It has to be used the fastest channel, radio or WhatsApp or even loudspeakers. It's important is whatever reaches to the people first. If you have, for example, if we have this thunderstorm warning from forecast, it's easy to put the information in loudspeakers for festival example, or in the screens that people would know that something would happen and they can start to act. It doesn't have to be in catastrophic. It won't be catastrophic. It doesn't have to be catastrophic, but the information has to be clear, and everyone should understand it in the same way. So you can kindly ask them, give a short note that please leave the area, or please find your room in the next few room for you for next 2 hours, that the weather can be really bad. So if this style is kind and peaceful, believe me, this reach to the people also as it is. It doesn't have to be nervous. It doesn't have to be also commanding. So if you have to just think with me with a short exercise. If you have to write down a short public announcement for a weather emergency, for example, due to strong winds, please move calmly to the tent area. This can be a really nice announcement. It is calm. It has calm tone. It has short words. Even foreign people can understand it. It has to be also have in it clear instruction. So, due to strong winds, please move calmly to the tent area. So this is the point, that the message and communication under pressure needs to be in these three important points. And I ask you to remind that in crisis, the silence is also communication. If there is silence, the rumors will start, as I said in the beginning. As I planned in the beginning, there will be now a short break. I have already spoke an hour, and I hope to meet you after 10 minutes in 1910 and to continue with crisis, to learn from crisis and to continue with this theme. Actually, this is the part when the crisis is over. But when the crisis is over, this learning begins. So professional organizers always review after they went. What risks did we underestimate? Which action worked best, and what we can improve next time? So this reflection closes the safety loop. It turns experience into prevention. So sharing lessons builds trust and strengthens your safety culture. So every crisis is a feedback. And review what went wrong and what went right. So review helps you next time. Absolutely. It helps you next time in the planning part. It helps you next time in acting part. It helps you and it helps your team. After review, you have done, always you have to update your risk plan. This risk plan is a living document. This risk plan is always something which changes. It changes according your experience. It changes according things which are gone wrong or which are gone right. So this risk plan you have to keep update all the time. And the lessons you got, you have to share with your team. And learn from crisis in this graphical way is a circle. You have plan, you act during crisis, then you have review, then improve your acting, your according review, and then you have a new plan. You have improved plan. And crisis can be valuable only if we learn from them. These crises, actually, we can also say, if someone likes it or not, a crisis has become to teach us all. So the real meaning of preparation, it is that it doesn't stop things from happening, but preparation it helps us to turn chaos into control. Preparation won't avoid crisis. It won't avoid whatever you have done and prepared for your event. It doesn't stop things from happening, but it helps you to turn chaos into control, into your will, and into happy end. We can say also that. So now I would like to you all reflect, try to reflect with me, or reflect to me or the others. I would like to ask you some questions, and until this part, I run quickly through this crisis and risk management, but I hope you all have had time to think about it. But if you didn't have, just think about it. And I would kindly ask you to tell me about your experience. And I had another reflection question or questions for you. I took them from previous theme, but these 3 questions. What are your ideas when you had this crisis and you had this experience? What are the things you have learned from this experience, or how you can be sure that your team is ready and prepared for the next crisis, or what kind of backup plans do you usually have for events? So it doesn't have to have crisis, but I wonder, how do you know that your team is prepared and you have backup plans, if you have, of course, and what have you learned from previous events? Is there anyone who wants to share? Don't be shy. There is no wrong answers or wrong events or wrong experience or ideas. Everything is right, and everything you share can be good for the others also. We can go later with these questions. If you are ready later, then we discuss them later. But now I'm going to show you the picture. This is a Viljandi Central Palace. Yes, and you can see in the picture, you can see the big tent, event tent, and it was 2011 Viljandi Viljandi Folk Music Festival, which is organized by Estonian Traditional Music Center. And this was a main tent for evening shows and the midnight show. So it's like a dancing party and the midnight party, which always was at the end of the festival day. But this tent has its measures. It was 25 meters by 40 meters. So it has limits. So there was walls, there was a ceiling, and there was an extra equipment inside, technical lighting and sound system, even some chairs were there also. And there was a control over the tent by security team. So there was a limit of that tent, how many visitors can be same time inside. So the limit was set by security and safety team. So if the limit is over, no more people can enter the tent. So, but in one evening, on Saturday evening, one day before the festival ended, there was a very famous band planned into that tent. Very famous. It was their last show. It was their really last time they showed, and they had this performance. Their name was Vägilased, very famous Estonian folk band, and our program leader put them in the tent and he has really good thoughts about it, because it would be like a famous concert, and people can attend in, and it's inside if it's raining, and it's everything will be good planned. But that was a risk that the tent can be overcrowded. And this is a situation what happened when the concert started. It was midnight, and you see the tent inside is so filled with the people that you cannot even you can move, you can dance, but this situation, you cannot help if someone is need medical help, or if someone needs to go out quickly, or if someone falls or something else. So this was a limit. As you can see here, it was filled with the people. And later we can consider it was really wrong decision to put this tent as a final place for a final show for this very good folk band. I'll show you more pictures. It was really much fun there inside, when people were inside. They didn't complain about the temperature or tightness or whatever. They didn't complain at all. But these people who were left behind the door, they were complaining. They were really angry. They have bought tickets. They also want to enter the tent to meet the band and to be part of the show. They were really, really angry, because they were not only the ticket buyers, they were also people who are having the festival wristbands for 4 days, and there was no room for them to enter the tent. And that was a problem. People started complaining, and something has to be done to help them out. Also, some people left the tent because of the temperature and the humidity. What became, because you see that much people in one room dancing in a hot night. It also there is no extra air conditioning or ventilation. We could only open the walls, but people didn't get in. More people didn't get in. You see here, behind in the back, people are sitting on the seats, but in front they all stayed like this. Small childs were put on the stage, so they were not stepped on, but basically this was really bad situation. No one didn't get hurt. That's for sure. This you see the band regulars it. But I want to tell you about the really clever solution we made. It was made by our video team. This is not it wasn't a kind of crisis. We can say it was crisis because people were left behind the door and they couldn't see the show. They were angry. Their experience about our festival organizing was not so good. But then we started solution that video cameras which were recording the show on that tent had connection to the LED screen which was on the other place, on the other stage. And our video team organized that situation, that this video streaming was put it into another place which was much bigger than this tent. It was outside, it was outdoor, and the screen size was 3 times 4 meters. And the singer of that band got the information that some people, even more people than in tent, were watching and enjoying the show in outdoor, in another place of the festival. And she communicated with them, because this band asks these visitors or its guests to dance. The dance with this music is absolutely one thing and right thing to do over the show. And this show was going on in 2 places, in real place, in online, in this tent, and also in other place where there was actually more people. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture for that another place, but I know that it was kind of experience. We solved that bad planning and we turned it into a good experience. So people could dance outside, could dance under the stars, and same time they could see and hear their favorite band. It was a good end, but next time we got also we in later in the meetings after the festival, that was also the main goal, to put it into a reflection that we never do plan this kind of shows into small tents anymore. We can have there small bands or not so famous band anymore in the future, but not so famous band that can yes, this tent can also have half of the crowd or even less. Yeah, I can say that we don't use that tent anymore in our festival, but it was time that it was really famous place to dance and to enjoy the music. So this is one experience what shows that it doesn't have to be crisis. So crisis where someone gets hurt or someone gets really, or something can happen with the techniques or people or think. Also the experience or feeling is important of the festival or your event. So you have to take care of the feeling of your visitors and their experience and also their mind. So this is a special example what I have for you. So and I have used this example many times to show that good solutions cannot be planned. We haven't had plan for that we have trained our video team that you need to be ready to stream the concert on the other place, on the other screen. They found the solution by accidentally, and they found this solution because they were so smart, they were so dedicated, so they were really, the situation was went well because we have such great video team, and we didn't do anything about it. We just thanked them later, and that was it. So this is situation we could only avoid, not to put such famous bands, such crowded bands into small tent. This is the point of my example. So now I ask, is there anyone who can want to share their experience about the crisis or the events, or about the risks you have learned to predict, or from your experience? I put in my little experience here to encourage you to share your experience too. As you see, experience can be really not harmful, but can be just a little idea. Anyone? Okay, I take another example then. This is our festival, and it happened exactly 10 years ago. Our little traditional music center, and our traditional music center, yes, the free area of public. So people were waiting the concert of the Grand Hall concert. So they come together, they waited behind the doors because there was a rule that who gets in first gets better seats. There was no tickets with the numbers of seats and lines. So they came to wait. And our really good team was packing them on the seats. And were dealing with them because everyone wanted to see the show. It was a totally another band, but also a very famous band, but they were really, really important for people to see that show. And in this moment, you see, it was crowded. You see the balcony, you see the walking area between the chairs, that people are sitting there. Our team was thinking that, oh, we will be really, really good person. We were really good team, and we help people. We pack them everywhere we can find a place. We put them on the floors. We bring in some extra chairs, so everyone will be happy. But now, if you think about safety, it's absolutely wrong, because this grand hall, there can be only 407 visitors in the same time when you have seats. If something had happened with someone's health, or something has happened with techniques or fire alarm, can you imagine how quickly these people can stand and run out or walk out the doors? It's not that quick that it should be, I say. So this is kind of overbooked concert, but it's absolutely non-acceptable. It never happened again, and we made our later conclusion about it, that if the room has number of seats and number of visitors, it can be there. There cannot be no more, even one or two people sitting around the chairs on the floor. So this is actually the emergency rule, that rooms cannot be overcrowded. This is also my example that you can avoid this situation when you inform your team, when you teach your team, or when you have a plan that, because we have volunteers. These volunteers are really, really committed to the festival. They really want to be good persons. They really want to be persons who act right. They really want to be kind with the visitors, because remember, visitors need to have a good memory, need to have good experience from from festival. Think about people who have stayed behind the doors. Not the old people could get in, but this time there was more than 600, I believe, in that room. But volunteers need to keep in the mind that safety first. Safety must be first place, and then the other things. Okay, they leave behind the doors, but there is we can also explain the visitors that we don't have space for you. Just it is like it is. But safety, it's for your own safety. We keep that door closed after the seats are filled, and no one else get in. Maybe you come next time early, or you can attend another concert of that band, and that you might have possibility to see it later. But if don't, the life is life. So anything cannot be more important than safety and your own health. In our days, people cannot take it in their minds that they always say, I believe you have heard also, nothing can happen. What could happen if we sit there? Okay, I can stand up and walk away, but you can. But if your neighbor can't, or neighbors can't, if they fall, what happens if someone falls and you cannot exit the room? These rules for safety rules, especially for rooms, safety light and amount of seats, they are not taken from the ceiling. I say they are really calculated. They are really rules which has to be met. These rules cannot be erased by person who just thinks that nothing will happen. As I said in the beginning, is if you calculate it won't happen, it doesn't mean it really won't happen. especially when you think it doesn't happen. It will happen, absolutely. This is my experience about the risks and crisis. Now I'm leading to you the key to takeaways. So this slide sums up everything we have explored today. So these points, just you can later, of course, have view of them, but we take them all in one slide. Remember that there is no such thing as completely safe event. Every event has its risks, and you remember, risk can realize as crisis. If we know the risk, then there is possibility that we can manage the risk and we can avoid the crisis, or we can make the crisis shorter, or we can make the crisis easier, if you can say that. But remember that every event has its risks. There is no completely safe event, but on the other hand, there can be such thing as prepared organizer. As you, well-prepared organizer, can be always be there when there is an event, and this can help you deal with the risks. Prevention saves times and stress, so it means if you don't have to plan weeks or months your events. Small events take smaller time, fewer time to planning, but only a few hours of planning can save you some really bad accidents, or can help you with crisis management. Only a few hours. If you have your risk management, you have your risk plan, you have your team. Remember what I told you before. And as I told you, crisis is a realized risk. And you need to act with calm leadership. It's not about panic. Panic is always there when there is crisis, but it's about calm leadership and teamwork. You need to remember, and you can prepare yourself, you can prepare your team to act calmly and work as a good team. Our next point is communication. This is the strongest tool. Remember, I told this communication has its own rules. It has how the good communication goes on. You can find it later in slides, but I remind you that the communication is the strongest tool. When the people know what's happening and what to do, they stay calm, they act calm, and the result is good end, I will say shortly. And if crisis has happened, there is always something to learn. After every event, even if there has not been any crisis, after every event, take, for example, 10 minutes to review and update your plan. This is a way you can grow. This is a way you can grow with your team. This is a way you have better plan for next time. And preparation turns chaos into control. Preparation is everything. And this preparation is what separates reaction from leadership. Separates reaction from leadership. And now if you take an event and we want to have safe event, we want to organize a safe event which doesn't reach to the crisis. We also or we have a plan for crisis, but the event doesn't have to end with crisis. There is always this certain circle cycle of event safety. You have to identify risks. It's from risk to learning. You start identifying what could go wrong. Then assess how serious this what can happen can be. And then you have readiness to prevent and prepare these things. You can prepare your team, you prevent problem. When something happens, you act and you communicate clearly. This is the next point. You stay calm, you lead, you inform. Leadership means that in crisis, you stay calm and connected. This is a leadership. And finally, review and learn. This is what turns each experience in a new prevention. And this cycle never ends. That's why. It's not just a checklist. It's let's say it's mindset. You have review, you learn, reflect, share, and improve. And you start in the beginning, identifying risks, what could go wrong. You have plan, you assess, prevent, prepare, act, and communicate. And another review and learn. This is SHIRP cycle. So this is what is really what can be really what really matters in this place. Okay. Do we have any questions by now? And can we go to the questions in the chat?
Yes, we have one question in the chats. It's from Oksana, and she has said, how exactly should crisis situations be documented?
I would say these crisis situations can be documented any way which is possible. I mean, you can take photos if there is someone can take photos. You can collect it later from your crew member. You can collect it from the visitors if you know them. You have to have a meeting later with your team. Absolutely, you have to have a meeting with I would say security team or medical team or technical team. This documented, if you mean documented by how to document it, it should be, there is no such answer like how exactly, but documentation must have some real, what do you say? It's a real experience from the people who were in crisis. So you can record it with phones or with a tape recorder or whatever, and you can later listen them and write down the emotions and their feelings about the crisis. So documentation, it should be written down. The feelings cannot be in the photos or it cannot be in the records. It should be written down. And these crisis situations, when you describe the crisis, there's many point of views. If the visitors have some experience, security has another experience, police has another experience, you should take them together and organize them as different point of views. So this documentation doesn't need to be the solution. It just describes the life of crisis, how and when it started, if it's possible to write it, and what happened next, what was next point, what did the crew member do when the crisis started, what was the steps they took into action, how they communicated, because all the chats we have in Telegram or WhatsApp, they can be also downloaded and they can put it also into documentation, because it's later, it's really good, more information we have and more we have, the better is to analyze the crisis, I would say, crisis life, how the crisis was going on. So we can analyze in the start, in the middle, and how did it end. So the documentation, there is no rule or there is no fixed forms to put the crisis documentation. It's up to every organizer. It's up to every team. But you know, when these police or safety or this security company, if they do their list about crisis or their events, or they have to fill some forms. This is for them to analyze later, but events organizer can set up their own forms, as they set up their own forms for crisis planning and risk planning. They also can set up the forms of documentation crisis. If my answer was good enough. So there's no rule, but these rules can be set it up by yourself. Exactly how you should do it, no one can say it. There is no handbook for that, how they should be done. But true is, more exactly do it, more information it gives you later to analyze the situation and be prepared for next time. Yes?
Now it's clear, thank you.
Okay, yes. As clear as it can be. Okay. Do we have questions? More questions? No. In one hand, this topic of crisis and problem solving can be that complicated that you need time for thinking about it. For that, I give you the homework and I give you the worksheet for this our lecture. So I believe we have in 1 week or more than 1 week, we have another meeting, and I hope we can share them there more, your experience, your thoughts about this topic, because I believe it has been too short time to give you all the experience I have. It's not even possible in 3 or 4 times, but I can give you my experience also when you ask me something or ask me things you are really interested in, because I can give you all the information about this safety crisis or risk analysis. I can give you some tools or some overview of this topic, so you can think and prepare yourself for your events. That was my idea I told you in the beginning of the lecture. These are short questions, and it doesn't have to fill and send it to me, but these are meant to be the questions and your answers for yourself. This is PDF file, so let's say you have to print it out or you have to copy the questions and to answer them, but you don't need to send them to me, but you can always send them and ask me extra question if you need. And so here we go through all the topics we had here. And in the end, we have these self-check questions. If you have gone through this topic, you can give an answer, give an honest answer. Are you ready for that? Do you know that? Can you communicate clearly under pressure? Then you can estimate yourself. What is your position at the moment about crisis? What is your position about risk management, and what is your position about staying calm when things go wrong? So this is a little little worksheet for later use after this, after our meeting. So, but now I would go on with a homework sheet. So yes, homework. I will lead you to the first page. So my idea for your own homework is related with our today's topic, crisis management and problem solving. So I ask you to describe the event you have in mind. It doesn't have to be real. It can be also imaginary. The event you want to organize, event that you will planning to organize, or event you already had. Describe the event you have, describe where it goes on, where it should go on, how many people, what is the point of the event, is it musical, is it another, and it's also good to describe when it happens. Is it outdoor event, is it in summer, autumn, spring, is there any extra landscape you are planning to organize it, is there a lake next to it, is it in a crowded place, in a city, or it's somewhere in the nature? All these descriptions will help you for next questions. So to describe it as deeply as you can. So it will be the base of your homework next steps. And after that, you have described it or you have it in your mind, I ask you in the next point to identify 3 possible risks what can happen in your event, what can really realize in your event. These possible risks, you can always make them more than, you can list them 10 or 15, but I ask you to let's say these risks, which probability and which impact is highest. Remember, I had this method to evaluate the risk, probability, impact, and how the risk can be managed. So 3 possible things that could go wrong. This is the second version. And after that, for each risk, please describe what can you do to prevent or manage the risk as a risk as described. And I believe if you write it down, you already have in your mind what can be the prevention, or what can be how can you manage the risk. To remember, the risk cannot be avoided 100%, but you can prevent and manage it, and to keep as low the possibility the risk will happen. And remember, when risks became true, then it's crisis. Small crisis, big crisis, no matter. If we are a small event, there can be also this, as I said, you cannot make event with this 100% safe. There are risks always. And the 4th point, what did you learn from this exercise? Did you find the risks that you in that way describing? Did you find the risk which were not in your mind before, or did you find risks which were underestimated in that procedure? You found them really high impact. This is what is your reflection to this exercise. And also important, how will it change your approach to event safety? How do you think about it in future? Do you think it's you can always say it's not necessary, it's not for me, it's not important. I can handle my events without all this this theoretical part, and I will do it in my own way, in old way, and I can handle the event as well. It's up to you. This is just a tool to help you organize and to be safe, you safe, and your visitors and your team can be safe. This is a tool, and this is theory. Theory which has its own idea. And fifth point, it goes more personally, and you need to ask yourself, look into yourself, how you personally react when the stress rises and the things go wrong. I believe you all know yourself. You can be honest. You don't have to write that part if you feel it's not comfortable, but I would like to know how do you feel when things are going wrong. Myself, I'm used to have the experience. I can keep myself calm and going and steady, but I have my moments also. When I heard the fire alarm, when I heard the police alarm or whatever, it's also my blood pressure goes up and my heart beats faster. This is not something to be shame on. I really feel that I'm excited when these things get into my ear, but it doesn't have to be the bad thing. I have to recognize the thing. I have to be sure that these things doesn't go worse. This is my point of these situations. And the next point, what things or weaknesses do you notice in yourself during pressure? Are your hands shaking, or can you think clearly? What is it what you have, these weaknesses? You can always ask your friends or from your team. Do they know what weaknesses do you have? Because it's always easy to notice these from outside, not inside. Maybe you feel so confident that you don't have any weaknesses, but others say that you are speaking louder than you are under pressure, or you stay really quiet, or whatever it can be. This is just noticing, and this is also a thing you need to notice from the others in your team, so you can see that people is under pressure. It doesn't be a crisis when people are under pressure. Maybe there's too much work. Maybe there are some problems in his or her health, or in relations, or whatever. So this pressure can be different. And finally, the sixth, teamwork and learning culture. I want you to describe how can event teams create an environment where people feel safe to report problems, admit mistakes, and learn from them. This is a thing that is need to be think about, because if there is problem, we need to report it. We need to admit our mistakes, and there's always good way to learn them also. But there has to be some environment supported. If someone makes mistake, he or she rather doesn't talk about it. Everyone will put blame on him or her about the mistake, but this is not the way we want to act. If you have problem, you need to feel safe to talk about it. And if these these weaknesses are also our problems, we also admit them, and we try to learn from them. We try to find things where our weaknesses are not our weaknesses anymore, but our strength already. So in last part, I I wait your free ideas on, or your ideas about the thing which we didn't talk about today, but I believe you have these thoughts also with you. And I ask you to, sorry, it's written PDF here, but I wait you can put it in an email in a free text, or you can write us in a doc file and send the feedback before the feedback meeting we have to my email address. And I ask you to focus on logic, and the length is not important at all. Just 1 or 2 pages is enough. Point is that I hope you can answer at least these first 4 questions. 5 and 6, 5th and 6th is not that important concerning our lecture, but I'm curious what ideas you have about this teamwork and learning culture, basically. So, is there any questions about the homework or the worksheet I showed you just now? According to Estonian law, I cannot tell about the other, but if you rent a venue place, they have a security plan for the space, and they have all the fire plan, fire alarm system. Hopefully, but responsibility of event always goes to organizer. So when you organize something in a place you rent, you need to know all the rules. You need to know all the exits. You need to know where these systems, where they work, how people can escape from the building. This is your responsibility. You have to teach your crew so this space can be used as a safe place for your event also. But you don't have to create security plan for a concert hall where you organize your concert or other houses. Or normally these security plans can be, in concrete houses. They are made, but for festivals and for smaller outdoor events, security plan has to be made by the organizer itself. And the thing is, if you are repeating event year to year, you can use the same security plan. You can improve it. You can make there are also these improvements. You can change it. But if this continuous event, it's smart to use your previous experience.